There are some childhood memories that fade with time. Then there are the ones that become more disturbing the older you get, because you eventually realize just how close you were to something terrible. For me, one of those memories began with what should have been an ordinary sleepover. When I was a boy, one of my favorite things was spending the night at my friend Joe's house. His house had an unusual layout that made it perfect for kids who wanted to stay awake far past their bedtime. It was big, but the real attraction was downstairs. The basement was huge, with a pool table, an air hockey table, and a strange layout that seemed to form one enormous loop. Joe and I would ride our scooters around that loop after hours of playing video games and eating whatever junk food we could get our hands on. Best of all, his parents could barely hear anything happening down there. Their bedrooms were all the way upstairs, and the basement felt like a completely separate world. One night, my mom dropped me off after dinner. It was the night before a holiday, so neither of us had school the next day. Joe and I wasted no time heading downstairs. We settled in front of his PlayStation 1 and started playing one of his new games. For a while, everything felt completely normal. Then, without warning, the door to the laundry room at the back of the basement slowly creaked open. Joe stopped playing. We both looked toward it. The door was now partially open, revealing nothing but darkness beyond it. I remember telling Joe, "Go check it out." He barely reacted. "It's fine," he said. "It happens sometimes." Maybe that should have made me feel better. It didn't. There was something about that doorway. The laundry room was large and completely dark, and from where we were sitting, we couldn't see what was inside. Even though I tried to convince myself it was nothing, I kept looking at that black opening. "Go shut the door," I finally told him. After a moment, Joe got up. He walked over and closed it. Then he returned to the game. At the time, neither of us could have known that the door opening was the first warning that something was already wrong in that basement. We went back to playing as if nothing had happened. Eventually, the tension wore off, and we slipped back into the kind of careless fun only kids can have during a sleepover. After playing video games for a while, I started riding Joe's bike around the basement loop. Looking back, it sounds ridiculous, but at the time it was one of the most entertaining things imaginable. I rode around the basement, turning corners and passing the furniture while Joe stayed nearby. Then another sound came from the laundry room. This time, it wasn't a creaking door. It sounded almost like the heavy door of a washing machine or dryer being slammed shut. The noise echoed through the basement. Joe and I froze. Neither of us said anything for a second. Then we ran. We hurried up the stairs, completely freaked out, and Joe called for his dad. When his father came downstairs, we told him about the noise and asked him to check the laundry room. He opened the door. He looked inside. For about 5 seconds, he searched the room. Then he calmly said, "There's no one in there." That was it. No explanation. No concern. He simply walked back upstairs and went to bed. Joe and I eventually returned to the basement, although neither of us was quite as relaxed as before. We stayed awake for another hour or two, trying to distract ourselves with video games and conversation. Eventually, though, we had to sleep. There were 2 couches in the basement. One was positioned in front of the television. The other was farther toward the back, near the bar. I took the couch toward the back. Joe settled on the other one. The basement became quiet. At some point, I fell asleep. But I didn't stay asleep for long. I suddenly woke up in complete darkness. The basement windows were too small to let in any light, and there was no glow from outside. It was still the middle of the night. For several seconds, I simply lay there, trying to understand why I had woken up. Then I rubbed my eyes and slowly sat up. Something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it, but I had the unmistakable feeling that I was being watched. I looked toward Joe's couch. "Joe," I whispered. There was no answer. I said his name again, and then I saw movement. Something shifted in the darkness near the laundry room. Before I could make sense of it, the laundry room door slowly creaked shut. My heart started pounding. I climbed off the couch and headed toward Joe. But when I reached his couch, he wasn't there. That was when I convinced myself I finally understood what was happening. Joe was trying to scare me. For a moment, everything made sense. Joe had probably decided to hide in the laundry room and wait for me to investigate. The earlier noises, the movement in the darkness, the door closing, it had to be him. At least, that's what I told myself. I decided I would reverse the prank. Instead of letting Joe scare me, I would scare him. I walked toward the laundry room as quietly as I could. The basement was silent except for my own breathing and the faint sounds of movement beneath my feet. Every step toward the door made me more aware of how dark the room behind it was. I reached the doorknob. My hand rested on it for a moment. Then I gave myself a little mental build-up, preparing for the surprise. I yanked the door open. "Got you." I rushed inside, shouting. Then I reached for the light. The room suddenly filled with brightness. Joe wasn't there. I stopped. For a few seconds, I simply stood there, confused. If Joe wasn't hiding behind the door, where was he? I looked around the laundry room. Nothing. No Joe. No obvious hiding place. The certainty I had felt only moments earlier began disappearing. Then something caught my attention. It was inside one of the dryers. The door had glass in it, the kind that was slightly tinted and difficult to see through. From a distance, I could make out something behind the glass. I stepped closer, then closer again. I crouched down. There was someone inside. A person was curled up tightly, almost like a ball, inside the dryer. My first thought was that it had to be Joe. It had to be. I stared through the tinted glass, trying to see his face. And then I realized something that made the entire room seem to change around me. The person inside wasn't Joe. I didn't know who he was. It was a grown man. He was crouched inside the dryer, looking back at me through the glass. For several seconds, I couldn't move. The man didn't need to say anything. I was staring directly at a stranger who had somehow been hiding inside my friend's laundry room while we had been downstairs for hours. The realization hit me all at once. The noises hadn't been a prank. The door hadn't been moving by itself. And when Joe's father had checked the laundry room earlier, he hadn't found the man. I screamed. Then I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the top of the stairs. I ran straight toward Joe's parents' bedroom, shouting that there was someone downstairs. My fear was no longer about being scared during a sleepover. There was a real stranger inside the house. The entire house seemed to wake up at once. Doors opened. People came out of their bedrooms. And then Joe appeared. Seeing him standing there made the situation even more confusing. I had just seen someone inside the dryer, so why was Joe upstairs? Joe explained that he had been having trouble falling asleep on the couch. At some point, he had gone upstairs to his bedroom. That meant the person I had seen in the laundry room had never been Joe. I told everyone what I had found. There's someone hiding in the dryer. Joe's dad immediately started toward the basement. He didn't hesitate. He stormed down the stairs to confront whoever was down there. But before he could reach the laundry room, something happened. A person suddenly ran through the living room. Someone had come up from downstairs. The stranger rushed past them and headed straight for the front door. Joe's mom screamed. Joe's dad immediately chased after him, running outside in his slippers. But he never had much of a chance. He was still dressed for bed and wasn't prepared to chase someone through the night. By the time he got outside, the man was already getting away. Joe's dad eventually came back inside. By then, Joe's mom had already called the police. When the officers arrived, they began asking questions. They wanted to know if I had noticed anything specific about the man. I tried to think back to those few terrifying seconds in the laundry room. His face, his clothes, the way he had been curled up inside that dryer. But I couldn't give them much. The only detail I could confidently remember was his clothing. He was wearing dark clothes, I told them. That was all I could say. The police investigated the situation, but for me, the worst part was realizing that the man had apparently been inside the house while we were downstairs for hours. He had been close enough to hear us, close enough to move around, close enough to hide, and at some point during the night, he had been inside that laundry room, concealed in a place I never would have thought to look. That was the part one couldn't stop thinking about. That night changed the way Joe and I thought about sleepovers. After the police came and the stranger was gone, neither of us wanted to sleep downstairs anymore. Joe and I ended up sleeping in his bedroom. I didn't even take the bed. I slept on the floor with a blanket. The bedroom door stayed locked. Neither of us wanted to be separated from the other, and neither of us wanted to hear another sound coming from somewhere downstairs. The strange thing about what happened is that, earlier that night, everything had seemed so ordinary. We had been playing video games. We had been eating junk food. I had been riding around the basement on a bike. We had laughed at things that now seemed completely unimportant. Then the laundry room door opened. At first, Joe had dismissed it because he said it happened sometimes. Then came the noise from inside. His father had checked the room and found nothing. Or at least, he hadn't seen anything. And later, while everyone was asleep, I woke up with the feeling that someone was watching me. I saw movement near the laundry room. I watched the door close. I thought Joe was playing a prank. That assumption was the only reason I had the courage to walk toward that door. I thought I was about to scare my friend. Instead, I found a grown man hiding inside a dryer. And even now, the detail that stays with me isn't simply that someone had broken into the house. It's the fact that the man had been hiding so close to us while we were completely unaware. We had spent hours downstairs, laughing and playing. He was somewhere in that same basement. The room that had once felt like the coolest part of Joe's house suddenly became the place I never wanted to enter again. After that night, Joe and I took a break from sleepovers for a while. It was hard to feel comfortable doing them after what had happened. The basement had once been a place where we could stay awake all night without worrying about anything. Now we knew how quickly that feeling of safety could disappear. And there was one question neither of us could forget. How long had that man been inside the house before I opened the laundry room door?